What up, Airsofters? This is Cephas here, and today I have the Grail gun that I've been hunting for almost forever. Seems like it. I have here the Q Honey Badger SBR and also the SD version, but using the MWS GBBR platform. So sit tight, this is gonna be a review that you're gonna really wanna see. For YouTube purpose, I want to reiterate that this is an Airsoft replica. It is not a real firearm, nor can it be modified to fire real projectiles or modified to become a real firearm in any way, shape, or form. Before I get into the Airsoft replica, I want to talk about the real steel firearm because this is where it comes from, right? This is originally designed on the company called AAC, the owner, Kevin Brittingham, and it was designed, it was a request from SOCOM, right, to create a weapons platform that would be the ultimate replacement of the MP5 SD. The cartridge that the Honey Badger was designed for was called the 300 Blackout, and in my opinion, one of the coolest names of a cartridge. The gun would gain international fame though, and it became almost a meme or icon due to Kevin Brittingham's involvement in the game, which is now synonymous with first-person shooters, Call of Duty or Modern Warfare 2. Originally, the firearm did not have the Honey Badger name. The owner at the time who made this saw that video that has gone viral about the Honey Badger, how the Honey Badger doesn't care, the actual animal on YouTube videos. And he saw that and he said, you know, and then that's where this Honey Badger name comes from. So that's a bit of history of the actual Honey Badger. But what we're here to talk about is the Airsoft replica. So right here we have the kit right here. It comes as a kit. I have here both versions. So the lower receiver is the same. The only difference is the upper here. This version right here that you see I'm holding right here is the SBR version with the shorter rail and the suppressor in the front right here. I do have the SD version right here, which I have, and it has the longer rail and the suppressor that fits under the rail. This is a kit. It does have most of the parts, however, it is missing 3 components. It is missing the inner barrel. It is also missing the hop-up chamber, and then also it's also missing the hop-up adjustment. So I just want to do a test fire of the gun here. It's probably about 70 degrees right now. I'm using green gas and .28 BBs in the gun. Now your Honey Badger may be different, or your MWS type of platform may be different depending on what you put in. But I just want to simply show the internal components and what you could possibly expect if you do wind up getting the this Honey Badger kit. What I want you to note is the snappiness of this due to the short recoil. It's not going that far back into the buffer because the buffer is the buffer tube area is shortened compared to your traditional buffer tube. So let's empty a magazine and see how it goes, right? Cool. And lock on last round. Also, so you know, I am using MWS magazines for the gun, and just the only difference is I added is the Guns Modify feed lip. Following the little ammo dump we did, what we're gonna do now is just do a quick dispersion, right? Not so much accuracy, but what kind of grouping we can get with this gun. I'm using a 4-quad Friction Pro hop-up, and I'm very happy with that. And I have a tight bore in here. So let's, got 30 more rounds in here. Okay, locked on last round on the previous magazine. Send it home, and let's just see what we get. Just so you know, over here, my target is right back there, which is roughly about maybe 30 feet or so. So it's not a long shot by any stretch of the imagination, but pretty good if we can see the grouping aid we get, right? All right, so let's see what we can get. Grouping right about here. Most of it is right inside my hand right here, so I think that's pretty good. Originally, CNC Tac made a version of the Honey Badger based off the MWS platform as well. I'd say about a year and a half ago, and I didn't move on it. Kind of glad I didn't, because in my opinion, this is the superior version. This is extremely hard to find. I didn't even know who made this gun. I asked a number of people, tried to figure out what's this and that and the other, and nobody had a real good answer. I was very fortunate to buy this secondhand. When I say secondhand, Hop Up app. The seller, it was basically brand new, and once I saw it on the Hop Up app, I was shocked to see it, to be honest. I had to read it multiple times just to make sure that it was, in fact, an MWS based Honey Badger, and it was, and I immediately bought it. So there's that. After doing research, it seems like that but I believe that this is a secret kit that was made by a company, small Airsoft studio, and they made this, and they are not taking any credit for it, as far as I'm aware. You can find this. There is no storefront that you can find this at. Unfortunately, the only places that you can possibly find a way to actually purchase this would be on Instagram or Telegram, I believe. And then the two places that you can go is either 852 Airsoft or Mad Club HK. And you can reach out to them and see if they have different configurations upon what you want to get. It will be a challenge to get this. If you're like me and you're living in the United States, it might be a chance of being seized by customs. So it is a risk, as opposed to going to a standard retailer like Red Wolf Airsoft or like JK Army. Currently, PTS has the license to create Q replica firearms that I've seen so far. I just, out of the last SHOT Show, they showed a PTS version of the Q Honey Badger, which unfortunately is a AEG. The difference between this version and why I think it's again, I haven't seen or actually held the CNC Tac version in my hand, but based upon the specs and the things that I've researched, I would ascertain that this is the superior version, because it is in fact the 7075 CNC aluminum for the receiver, which is different from the CNC Tac version, which was, I believe, 6061, which is a little bit of a softer metal. I believe 7075 is the actual alloy that the real Honey Badger uses. The color scheme is, you might be surprised, that is actually not a Cerakote. It's not a pigment that's added to the anodization process. It is actually what's called clear hard coat anodized. Clear hard coat anodized is actually a better version of just regular anodization, that when you add pigment to it, it's actually more, it's tougher, right? more robust. So you probably were asking me, well, why do you have the two different colors then, right? You have the silver front end and then you have this gold part of the receiver. Well, that's as a result of the alloy, right? This is the front foregrip, or the rail section, is 6061. So when you clear hard coat that, anodize it, it becomes this silver tone. This is, the receiver is 7075. So when you clear hard coat, anodize that, it turns it this nice gold color, which again gives it, the Honey Badger, its distinctive look. Moving along the aesthetic features of this Airsoft replica, there are all the markings that you would expect on a Q Honey Badger replica. You have the fire selector here. You have this giant Q logo on the lower, on the right, on the left side. You have the Honey Badger 300 black. You have where it was made, New Hampshire. You have in the front here where it says live free or die, which I think is really cool. And there are other markings on the barrel, which you can't quite see, but it's nice to know that they're there. This is the SBR version with the shorter handguard and the suppressor that goes on the front right here. And then we have the SD version with the longer handguard and the suppressor goes under it. Barrel lengthwise, they're both the same. However, total length, the SC version is a bit longer than the SBR version, as you can kind of see here. I'm glad I was able to get the kit with both a complete uppers, with the SBR and the SD. I like both of them. I like the SD that gives that integrally suppressed look. It's a little bit longer, but that just means that you can run a longer inner barrel if you want to. I like that it has a longer handguard because you can actually get farther on the grip if you feel the need to. However, with that being said, I do prefer the SBR version. This just speaks to me more, and if you look good, you play good. Another thing you'll quickly notice upon holding it is the weight. When compared to Sig Rattler 300 Black, this is significantly lighter. In the kit, there were 2 suppressors that were included. Depending on what configuration you get, this configuration is 2 uppers and a lower, right? So if you only get one configuration, then you'll only have 1 suppressor and 1 flash hider that accompanies the kit. On the SBR, which you will normally see is what the Q calls the Trash Panda. And it is a nice girthy suppressor. It's big enough where you can fit a tracer in it, which I like. The Thunder Chicken goes right about here, is the longer of the 2 suppressors, but skinnier. And the reason why they have it that way is because it has to fit under the handguard on the SD version. Both suppressors are nicely machined, nicely anodized, nice finish, and they have all the markings that you would expect. Q's method of attachment for the suppressor is different from the rest of the industry. A lot of the industry is using like quick detach stuff. Q's method of attachment is their flash hider, or what they call the cherry bomb. So what you do is you would just screw off your suppressor here, and go off a few times, and then it comes off, right? This is the cherry bomb here. It has this nice kind of like rose gold or type of bronze type of look. The Q Honey Badger was not intended to be used unsuppressed. It was intended to be suppressed and leave it on forever, right? You can clean it and everything like that, but the idea is to run it suppressed. As a suppressor host, it works very well, actually. Once you get it on, you screw it a few times, and then you lock it in, and then it's good. I have yet to have this come off on me during any games that I played. It is very secure. It actually requires a good amount of force once you get it in to actually get it detached, to the point where it would take the flash hider off as well. So I had to use some thread lock on the flash hider to the outer barrel to make sure that it didn't come off with it when detaching it from the suppressor. Moving front to back, we have the rail. I touched on this a little bit already, but these rails are very nicely machined. I don't see any milling or machining imperfections. The anodizing is very well done. But the other thing that is very staggering is how light they are. In my opinion, this is probably the thinnest handguard that I've used. And when I say thin, I don't mean like thin, like you can wrap your hand around it. When I'm talking about thin, I'm talking about the actual thickness of the metal that is within the handguard. It feels really thin, to the point where, yeah, you wonder, like, okay, is this gonna hold together? Because I've never used a handguard to be that thin. With that being said, I've used it plenty of times. I haven't had any issues with it, and it is very well machined. The big difference between the handguards, so you can see here, is the length. So if you were, you know, depending on where you like to put your hand on the SD, you might prefer this option because you can put your hands on more places on the rail for comfort, so you're not really all tucked in like this. You are limited to the places of attachment because while there is M-LOK on both of these are both M-LOK compatible, you do have a Picatinny rail on both of the 12 o'clocks on the SBR and the SD version. The interesting thing about the SD version is because of the area that the suppressor sits in. That area, because it fits in so tightly, you can't attach any M-LOK accessories to those rail sections. You can only do it from this part to the rear. Of course, you can see here I wrapped it up with camo tape, so then I'm not really putting any accessories anyway. I mostly just use this button here for the scope. Both handguards use a unique method of attachment that I have yet to see on any firearm or airsoft replica. It uses what Q calls the turnbuckle. And what that is a little nut that has two protruding extensions. And as you turn that, those extensions will extend, thus pushing against the receiver and the rail, which causes it to lock in securely. Moving on to the receiver, this is 7075 aluminum, which is similar to the actual Honey Badger. It has all the markings that I mentioned before. The main one is being the big Q logo here, which I really think is cool. With the kit, they give you a ambi fire selector here. However, on mine, I have elected to go with just the standard left side fire control because I find the ambi to get in the way of my trigger finger when I'm holding it finger off the trigger. I like it like that. I've never really used the ambi fire selector, but you know, some people may like it. Moving up on the top though, there are two versions of the upper receiver here, and you'll see here. This version that, and you can put either one, whether you want to do it with the SBR or the SD. However, on this, I chose to have it with the SBR, is that there is a dust cover here. They have given, as part of the kit, is a Magpul dust cover. I like this one because normal dust covers, you kind of have to disassemble the front end of the gun and then take it out because it has this long bar. However, the Magpul version is just simply a little lever and you pull it out and it comes off completely, which I really like that. Just in case if you have some issue, usually it's like a spring or something that breaks, something like that, from excessive use, then you can just simply replace that. On the SD version, there is no dust cover. It's just, yeah, it's missing. If you go onto Q's website, they do not sell a version that has a dust cover. They have chosen to go without that. And this is a testament to Q's pursuit of making the weapons platform as light as possible, and the Airsoft version replicates that. With that being said, also in the pursuit of saving weight, there is no bolt assist on either version of the SD or the SBR, as you can see here. A nice feature that is added into the lower receiver though is a enhanced magwell. On my other Airsoft replicas, I've had to get like a HRF Concepts magwell, enhanced magwell to so I can get better feeds when I'm doing my reloads. I'm glad that they've integrated that into the gun and that's not necessary. Another thing that is integrated into the gun is the trigger guard right here, which is very nicely machined, and there's no hot spots. Moving a little bit farther to the rear is the charging handle. On the real Honey Badger, this is made by Radian. and it's a custom-made charging handle specifically for the Q Honey Badger. What I can say about this one, that this is a MWS, so you can use pretty much any charging handle. With that being said, this has a unique feature that is kind of hard to see now because I've been using it so much, and this is the one area where I could say the engraving could have been better, is that there's a very, very subtle engraving, and it's almost hard to see now because I have so much oil on it right now, is that the Q logo is right here at the end of the charging handle, which makes it unique to the Honey Badger. The grip provided by Q is the Magpul Mo K. I like it. It's very, very slim. This is probably, of all the grips that I've used on for the AR type of platform or M4 type guns, this is the slimmest grip that I've used. It has a slightly more angle than I would like on the like a BCM or something that's more upright. However, it's not bad. I know it was designed for PDW, so I can see why it was made for that function. Moving to the rear of the gun, the Q Honey Badger has a very unique stock. Now, there are other firearms out there that have used a stock, like the Noveske Ghetto Blaster has a similar setup right here. It's a very, very light stock, and it has a button on this side right here, and you press it, and then you just pull out, and then you're good to go. It only has two settings. It's closed, and extended. That's it. There's nothing in between. So I know for some of you that might be an issue because of the length of pull. I initially thought that when I got the gun. It's the same thing I thought about when I got the SIG Rattler, the Toxicant, because it only has the folding stock, which only has one position. I was initially concerned as well about where that would be for shouldering and length of pull of the gun. However, I can say after using this a lot of time, both the SBR and the SD, that the length of pull is nice for me. I don't have any issues in terms of where I put my arms, my hands. One issue that some people will have, depending on how they hold the gun though, is that I've seen, at least on the real steel, I can't say it for this one, I assume this is made the same. However, with that being said, I haven't held a real steel Honey Badger. I have seen where some people, where this plastic part right here of the stock comes into their face and it kind of rubs it in the wrong way, that type of thing. I haven't had that issue because when I hold it like this, my face doesn't get into that plastic part of the stock right here. It's still on the guide rods. So yeah, I don't have that issue no matter how much I try to pull it. If I were to have a chest rig or a plate carrier, it would just even push it even farther out. So it's not an issue for me. The internals are lackluster in my opinion. For whatever reason, they made the externals, the actual receiver, the handguard, everything is just exceptionally well done. And then they decide to put in like the worst internals in my opinion, which are T8, right? For those of you who have watched my Noveske N4 video, which uses the CGS gas system or the T8, I really don't like it, but that is unfortunately what is included in this kit. Long story short, the reason why I don't like the T8 is because I find it to be very gas inefficient. I find the trigger pull, even though that there's adjustability into it, I could not find it a way that no matter how much I adjusted it, that it would work as well as a stock MWS trigger. And if it's not better than stock, then what's the point of getting the upgrade, right? Or the adjustability. The other thing is that, which I don't understand why, is that they've abandoned the Z plate on the MWS system, which is phenomenal for locking the bolt on last round. It just does it very, very well. For whatever reason, T8 has done away with that, and which is why I don't recommend it. I replaced the internals with the stock MWS bolt carrier, and I replaced the trigger box with a Guns Modify. I have a tight bore that goes up to about here of the suppressor for the SBR, so that allows a section for the tracer unit to sit, and that goes all the way here, so that can easily play on the indoor-outdoor field. For the actual hop-up, I'm using hop-up chamber. I'm using a Guns Modify. With the actual hop-up nub is a Friction Pro. And the hop-up adjuster, I'm using a Guns Modify. The same thing is on the SD version. The only difference being is that the inner barrel is slightly longer, because with the SD version, I don't plan to use a tracer on this one. This is mostly an outdoor gun, whereas the SBR version I would be using potentially for night games or indoor games. Another issue I found is that the buffer spring that is included, or the buffer springs that are included, are not very good. They give you two. One of them I assume is for like colder weather, like a winter type of spring, and one's a much stiffer one. I did not get satisfactory results with either one. It could have been the T8, but I really think it was the actual spring itself. The lighter spring is too light, whereas that when the bolt would go back, and then it would not have enough strength to push the bolt all the way forward. So what would happen is that I would get the bolt to kind of go partially, and there'd be like a ½ an inch from resetting to battery, which would not allow the trigger to reset. So that was a problem with the lighter spring, especially if you were shooting in weird angles. Like if you're shooting down, then obviously gravity would help the bolt go forward. But what happens if you're shooting up where it's like this at an angle, that bolt would not make it fully back to battery. The other problem with the much heavier spring, or the stiffer spring, is that it was just too stiff. When you tried to fire after a few rounds, or about 10 to 20-ish, you started to notice that the system was running very sluggish and running out of gas. Basically, the stiffer spring was causing it to run inefficiently, which would cause the magazine or the gun to run out of gas before you ran out of rounds. My solution to that problem, because if it can't shoot well, it can look good all you want, but if it can't shoot well, then you have a major issue right here, and you just have a really, really nice display piece, right? Which is not what I intended it to be. It's very expensive. It's not made to just sit on a wall. What I was able to find go onto the EVIC websites, and this spring I was looking for buffer springs, or your traditional AR or VFC or MWS. In particular, I was looking for a buffer spring that was not as stiff as your standard one. An example would be a winter type of spring that uses less gas. Knowing that, I could get one that was a thinner gauge. And then also on top of that though, simply putting in that was not enough, because of this, as you can see here, the stock length here is significantly smaller than your standard AR-15 stock, which goes about right here, I would say. And then inside here, you have a smaller buffer as well. So what you need to do was, what I did was that you had to find the correct length of that spring in that, like what I would call that Goldilocks thing, right? Where it just couldn't be too long, it couldn't be too short. It had to be just right in order for the gun to cycle correctly. I'll include a picture showing the spring that I used, and then also the length that I cut it to, so that allowed the Honey Badger to work quite nicely as it is right now. Another modification I did to the gun itself was on the internals, in that I noticed what was happening is that even with the modified buffer spring that I got and changed so it would work with the Honey Badger, I was getting issues where it was not locking up, or the Z plate wasn't catching the bolt. So what I did was on mine, I'll show a picture later on with that, but on the plate I kind of cut it a little bit deeper and shaped it in a way so that when the bolt, when on last round, this would go enough and then the bolt would engage in it, as opposed to hitting it higher on the plate and then skipping over it. And then lastly, for the internals, I installed a end pass so I could play indoor and outdoor. Now we're on to my favorite part, is accessories, and how do you accessorize your gun? Because this is the way I feel is the cool part with Airsoft, where everybody can accessorize in a way that makes sense for them. For me, what I've done here is I have a suppressor cover here. I think it looks really cool. The gray I've chosen to go here, something I just found on Amazon. It's real nice. And then it fits the dimensions of the Trash Panda very well. It just straps on with the shock cord and you just tie it on. It cuts it on nicely. I like it because it also protects the suppressor from any dings or anything. Usually when I'm playing, that's the front end of the suppressor is the part that actually will hit the ground or hit the wall or something like that. So I'm glad to have that to protect that. And I think it looks cool because it matches the whole gray and gold color scheme of the gun itself. Moving to the rear, I have a Surefire, the one you've seen in a lot of videos. I really like the Surefire M640DF. On the rail, I have BCM M-LOK covers here. I have this 3D printed finger stop that I put right here because I didn't like the hand stop, and there's not much space for anything else right here. So I just put the finger stop in the front to be able to have a reference point so I can grab the gun in the same place every single time. And then on the 12 o'clock, I 3D printed a place for the Surefire tape switch to sit in there, and that sits in there quite well. Of course, I made that in tan to reflect all the other accessories that I've included. Towards the middle right here, I have the Magpul RSA because I like to go 2-point every once in a while. And then optic, I have my current favorite optic is the Holosun AEMS in the flat dark earth. And then I have the Unity AEMS mount. On the SD, I've chosen to not add any flashlights because this is mostly in the daytime. I have the Magpul RSA again right here at the 12 o'clock. And then I have, which is a little bit interesting, which is the Scove X. It's an electronic zoom, similar to what Antimatter uses for their scope switch. They just debuted the electronic version of their scope switch before they had the mechanical one that had like the cables where you could push it forward or backward for an LPVO. This is similar into that, just a different brand. And basically you can use this to change your LPVO. I am using a replica of the Vortex 1-6 right here, Gen 2. The mount is part of the actual scope switch here. You can put a red dot if you want to at the top. And then to kind of close up everything here, I just wrapped it in multicam camo form tape to kind of give it a nice grip right here. Here I have the gun in the SD version here. I just wanted to show you this because I know pretty much this whole video was in the SBR version because I feel like that's a more popular version. However, I wanted to show you how this looks as well. Again, using this is primarily, I use this for outdoor fields or bigger, longer fields. So that concludes my review of the Q Honey Badger kit. Going back to like my Tokyo Marui URGI, my Noveski M4, even my Toxa kit, Sig Rattler. I don't know, I just see this on the shelf and I just have to go for it every single time, which I feel bad because I'm neglecting the other guns, right? But I mean, it's a beautiful replica airsoft gun. And for those of you who are fortunate enough to get one in your hands, I think you'll understand what I mean. And I also want to say thank you for those who subscribe to the channel lately, and all your encouragement, comments, thumbs up is always a welcome thing for me. This is Cephas here. God bless you and take care.